Roy. Half African, half Arab. Another question we have to ask, what is the role of the bastards of history? And he's a bastard. The bastards of history under pressure nearly always take sides with their father's side of the family that is in power. Father is an Arab. He is more Arab than the Arabs. He's black when he wants to be black, when it's his convenience. But in this series, this man is more Arab than the Arabs. You have to know some African history to know the game he's playing. But if you don't know African history, you don't know his omissions. You don't know his omissions about Ethiopia. You don't know he's left out Bilal. He's left out Zayd bin Harith. If you don't know anything about the Ethiopian period of Islam, when Ethiopia saved Islam, then when you leave it out, you don't know it because you didn't know that there was a period when Ethiopia saved Islam. But if you read the Encyclopedia of Islam, the Encyclopedia of Islam said that Bilal was a slave, Zayd bin Harith was a slave. The Encyclopedia of Islam on this point is wrong. Bilal was a lawyer for that day. Zayd bin Harith was a military man. They were both Ethiopians. Why Ethiopians? Why did his rich wife choose two tutors for him, both Ethiopians? Now you got to look at Ethiopian history. Why the fascination for Ethiopia? When the Prophet was born, half of Arabia was an Ethiopian colony. But if you haven't studied black imperialism, you don't know this. There was a time when Africans ruled nations and dominated nations. But you never read Baldwin's Prehistoric Nations or Drusilla Dungy Houston's work, recently reissued, on the wonderful world of the Cushite Ethiopians. The second chapter, Chancellor Williams' work, The Destruction of Black Civilization, dealing with the southern African origins of Egypt. Look how much you have to know. Now, in his fourth stanza, the fourth session, which was really one of the better ones, dealing with exploitation, he dealt with it pretty well. He opens by downgrading the Western slave trade by 12 million people. Du Bois, in the end of the 19th century, said it was from 60 to 100 million people. The documentation has proven since then that it was at least twice that much. Then the other documentations on the Arab slave trade in a work called Slave Trade in the Indian Ocean prove that one period 35 million Africans were taken out. Then he said there's only 2 million Africans in the Arabian Peninsula. And he asked, where are those Africans? He's saved because most people don't know where are those Africans. Ancestor, who's known me for 30 years, wouldn't dare stand before me and ask that question. Because I got an answer. I know where the Africans went who are not in the Arabian Peninsula. A lot of them went to India to perform the armies for the Maharajas. A lot of them went to Asia, different parts of Asia. Some went to China. And when the Portuguese came around to East Africa, the Arabs formed a partnership with the Portuguese. And the Portuguese and the Arabs got together, the Omani Arabs, and Ancestor is an Omani Arab. The Omani Arabs established Zanzibar and made Zanzibar the largest slave trading force in the world. And if you look at the magnolia trees at Zanzibar, each tree represents an African who made the mistake of looking at one of the harem women of the Arabs, because if an African looked at one of the harem women, they'd cut his head off and they'd bury his body, and they would plant a magnolia tree over his body. Every magnolia tree at Zanzibar represented an African who made the horrible mistake of looking at one of those women. If you look at Basil Davison's work, A History of East Africa, look in the index, look at the word Mazaroi. You'll find some information on his family. Now, he wouldn't ask me any question, what happened to those Africans? If there's only 2 million in the Arabian Peninsula now. See, he's whitewashing the Arab side of the slave trade. Now, when the meeting was called by UNESCO on slave trade in the Indian Ocean, they invited 50 Arab scholars. Not one showed up. They don't want to deal with it. And the African who is a Muslim don't want to deal with it. And those who are Muslim in this country don't even know about it and don't want to be told about it. Because they think when they left Christianity, they joined a pure thing that is without fault. I'm not saying leave it. Stay with it. Stay with whatsoever you want to stay with. But realize all Western-oriented religions are faulty. All Western-oriented religions were in the slave trade one way or the other, one time or the other. And all religions that said that God endorsed slavery are liars and hypocrites. No religion and no God ever approved of anybody enslaving anybody. The Quran, and if you doubt it, you can take a copy here and find the passage, says that you can beat your wife, but you have to beat her with a stick only so long. The stick cannot be too large, but you can beat her. Now, when you go back to the laws of Hammurabi, 2000 BC, from Babylonia, and you can see the origin of some of this. It's supposed to be the first civilized law. Hammurabi said that slavery is a good thing. It's all right to have a slave, but you got to have some humanity about it. You've got to give him a day off. Give him a day off, it's all right. We need to read more of other people's history and more of our history. And if we had read more history, we might understand the damage that the series is doing, and understand also that he is playing the role of a con man. Con man gives you through a few flattering things to get you into the trap before he robs you and makes the robbery looks palatable to you until you wake up and realize that you have been had. I don't know where he's going the rest of the series. I don't even know where he's going tonight. And this series will get more exposure than any educational series ever. It's on tonight, it'll be on Sunday, and it's on cable sometime during the week. So if you miss it tonight, don't worry, it'll be on Sunday. Subjects are important because all of them need to be reappraised in the light of reality, because we have not faced reality, because we as a people live in a world of fantasy. And once we face reality and use religions properly, and once we understand how they are used by other people, and once we separate, not so much as separate spirituality from religions, and understand that out of our spirituality came the world's religions, and that we have been naive and let people take from us the basis, the elements, make religions and come back and sell them to us. Once we understand that, and that we had a much better version of the same religions before their former creation, then once we recover from the shock of discovering that we had something better than what was sold to us, rehashed from our elements, then go back and take the great spirituality we had and move with it. And once we understand what we were and where we are, we will understand what we have to be and where we still have to go. We are still thinking minority when we were never a minority. But we are letting minority people fool us into thinking minority. And we are literally being controlled by minorities who endear themselves to other minorities by demonstrating their ability to control us. And they control us by manipulating images through politics, religion, in the mass media. All right, the subject admittedly is dangerous, as religion is a delicate and dangerous subject, and it's even more delicate and dangerous when you're talking to people of African descent. Because where religion is concerned, we are a purist people. We are the true believers. We out-pope the Pope and out-Muhammad Muhammad. We believe in things in its purest form, and we actually believe things are exactly what they say they're supposed to be. We have a humanity that actually makes us believe that people believe in democracy, and the inventors of it don't believe in it, and we had democracy before they think they invented it. And when they invent a fake version of it and sell it to us, we accept the fake version and neglect the genuine democracy that we have been living all along. Not only democracy, but humanity. We have had a historical fascination for ideas that come from the outside, and this has been our trap. And we have not studied those people who sell us fake trinkets, fake ideals, fake government forms, and rehash our religions that we invent in the first place. Now, all of the elements that went into the making of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam came out of Africa. And you have to distinguish between the elements in the formal organization of the religions themselves. The religions began to decline when outsiders, foreigners, took over those elements, organized them for their own political purpose, gave them a name, and began to project them to the world for their political purpose. Then the outsider created a religion, but he forgot the African substance, and the African substance was spirituality. Because if you have spirituality, you can use any one of them or none of them. Because the African spirituality encompassed the essence of all of them. The white man has religion, but he has no spirituality. Then you must study and understand the difference between Islam and Arabism, something which is difficult for black people to understand. The Arab did to Islam what the white man did to Christianity. He subtracted the spirituality and made it a political instrument for his opportunism. But when it came over to the African accepted the spiritual aspect of it and forgot that to the Arab it was then and still is a political game, and that the spiritual aspect left him very early, and that he was then and is now playing a game, and that the spiritual aspect never touched him. And if you listen with me with some kind of patience, I will show you exactly what I mean, because if you see that it was the African who used this religion spiritually, and it was the Arab who used it politically. It is the African who still uses it spiritually, and it is the Arab who still uses it politically. If you look at the present-day Sudan, where the Arabs have declared war on African cultures, and he not only while he has declared war on African cultures, he's eating bacon, drinking scotch, and patronizing European whores. He is as holy as a dog. And yet, you can go to Egypt and order scotch, bacon, or anything you want from the West, including a Western woman, and you can go to an African country that is Muslim, and if you order scotch, you might be put in jail. I am saying that Senegal, a Muslim African country, is more Muslim in its practice of the faith than Saudi Arabia. And you have African countries, because Africans in general believe in the spirituality of the religion, and while the Arabs practice the political aspect of the religion, devoid of spirituality. And it is the African side of Islam that has used it for spirituality. It was the African side of Islam and the African side of Islam alone that has used it as a rallying cry for the side of Islam and the African side of Islam alone that has used it as a rallying cry for social reform and revolutionary change. Now, in a speech at the African Poetry Theater a few weeks ago, I asked the audience, could anybody name one Arab who used Islam as a rallying cry for revolutionary change? A Senegalese student rose up and said, Gaddafi, which proved he don't know what Gaddafi is doing. Gaddafi is an Islamic zealot who is trying to use Islam to start a new form of Islamic and Arab imperialism. He's doing a few good things to disguise his con game. Otherwise, why would he be in Chad and Niger? He's looking for minerals, he's looking for resources, and he's backing those African countries that he can Islamize. Then why would he build a mosque in Ghana? And when Ghana wanted some money for a sewage system, he would refuse. You see the politics, but you don't see the spirit. Now, there's some things he's done that I can admire. I've been in Libya 3 times, and I've talked to him twice. He has a country 2/3 desert. It's almost self-sustained in food. That is to be admired. You've got African countries rich in soil, rich in forests, buying rice from Texas, and they got big rivers running through the country, and all rice needs is water, moisture. All sugarcane needs is moisture. You got them buying sugar from other countries, not making the best use of their own resources. And yet, he has made better use of his resources internally than many countries in Africa that have 10 times more resources. That's a plus for him in taking care of his people. But his external program is a form of Islamic colonialism that the African can't see. The African has got the illusion that there's somebody going to do something for them for nothing. The European and the Arab are similar. Their intention is to come to power and to use the religion as an instrument of power. Now, I believe religions should be instruments of spirituality and moral uplift. And the African obviously believes the same, and that is the way it should be used. But if you name, every time you name an African revolutionary who used Islam as a rallying cry for revolutionary change against colonialism, it is the black side of Islam. Now, I can rattle off all these African revolutionists, and it nearly always became part of that same basic structure. Now, I am not against Islam. I see it as a force in human history that has to be reckoned with, and that at times has commanded respect and can again command world respect. If forced to the wall, and if I have to choose between it and Christianity, I would choose it. I am that disgruntled about Christianity. I'm that disgruntled about it because both of them have failed their mission to mankind, and there is no excuse for them failing in their mission to mankind. I don't excuse either one of them, as I don't excuse the United States or Russia for failing their promise to mankind. I think they're both two thugs. I'm not equating Christianity and Islam with Russia and the United States. I am saying that these are world forces that made promises, and that these two thugs who met in an icebox recently to reflect their temperament and their character and when these forces meet, you assume that one of them on your side. You quite forget that when they meet, they are arguing about which one of them going to rule over you. All right, now, let me stick to my notes because I've got more notes than I've got time anyway. Now, my point is that we were robbed of our original religions so long ago, we have forgotten what those religions were. And once we go back to the original base of our religions, before Judaism, Christianity, or Islam, and when we go back to those religions were based on spirituality, and the God concept of those religions, of Judaism, Christianity, or Islam, came out of what I refer to as pre-God religions. I don't use that anymore because people don't understand what I mean about pre-God religions. They're so accustomed to the word God, they cannot understand that there was a time when man thought of a force in the universe presiding over the universe, and while he meant God, he did not use the word God, and man had more spirituality before he consistently used the word God. He used the God force and the God concept without using the word. He meant the same thing, and ultimately Western man interpreted that as meaning the same thing. But at this period, when everything was an all-encompassing, all-conclusive, man had not created, the Africans in the great river civilizations had created a religion that was so all-conclusive. It was not a weekend Jimmy Swaggart type of religion. It was a kind of religion that touched your total being. It wasn't a Sunday religion or a weekend religion. It was part of your totality, your morality, your dress, your diet, your marriage, your total human being. And it dictated everything. And this is why, at this period in human history, man did not have a word for jail, because no one had ever gone to one. No word for orphanages, because no one had ever thrown away any children. No word for old people's homes, because no one had ever discarded grandma and grandpa. Man was truly religious, too religious to shirk his responsibility in any way. I'm saying that that was the truly great religious period of man. But once these foreign clowns began to organize and misinterpret what the great Nile Valley African thinkers had, and began to slap names on them and began to make political and military use of them. That's why the whole thing